The first few months of Spinifex Zoo being under construction has been a success, with us housing our first animals, our 3 koalas. As the chief executive of the Gold Coast Wildlife Shelter gives us the green flag, our staff have been able to go into the enclosure with them. These 3 koalas were gifted to us by our partners at the Gold Coast Wildlife Shelter, as they have fully recovered from a tragic event caused by Cyclone Alfred. But now that they are fully recovered, the wildlife shelter no longer had enough space for them, so they let us house them. Koalas are found sleeping and eating, usually in trees, but not these 3. Kevin, our only male koala, is the most lazy out of the 3, usually staying in trees, sleeping or eating, but can be found wandering his enclosure from time to time, while Katie and Willow are usually found wandering the enclosure, looking around curiously for more food or places to climb. Our Australian head keeper, Sophie Mormon, has been enjoying spending time with the koalas. It's been pretty easy, and our staff have had lots of fun caring and hanging out with the koalas. Due to a low budget from the bankruptcy of Cabrino Zoo, we can only house animals from the region by rescuing them, and I think it's time for a new enclosure. While we are allowing the koalas to settle in, Sophie Mormon and Julian Fraser are helping think of what animal we should house next at our zoo. Cooper Lewis and Crennan Co-Construction's manager, Brian Crate, have started preparing for whatever they have to build for next, until we got a call from SeaWorld. They are out rescuing 12 little penguins that have swam too far north and ended up at Surfers Paradise. Due to them having a habitat range down near Tasmania and Victoria, we are unable to release them back to the wild, meaning we are going to have to house them as our second animals at the zoo. Cooper Lewis has let Creighton Co-Constructions know about our plans and have began building. Due to our rescue mission with SeaWorld ending as a success, we now need to bring them to the Gold Coast Wildlife Shelter for quarantine, just in case they are carrying any diseases. We have now released them into the wildlife shelter's marine animal quarantine enclosure, and they seem to be enjoying it at the moment. They are currently just swimming around, and the shelter has been kind enough to give them live fish to catch. But I think it's time for us to start constructing the enclosure. My plans in this episode are that I want to add some extra detail into this space, as it looks kinda plain. I'm planning to build the blue fairy penguin enclosure behind the koala enclosure, and then we will complete the koala and fairy penguin backstage. It sounds way more simpler than last episode. If you are enjoying this series so far and want to support this channel, please consider subscribing. And also don't forget to like and comment, even if it's something small like a name suggestion. It really helps push these videos out to more people. Let's meet the second residents of Spinifex Zoo, the blue fairy penguins. These guys are considered least concerned by the IUCN with a population of 469,760, which is great to hear. Luckily, these penguins don't need much space, as for 6 adults, they only need about 190 square meters of land, and because they are penguins, they need about 65 square meters of water and 40 square meters of deep water. Penguins are highly social animals and live in large groups of up to 500, but let's hope we never get up to that amount, and due to them being easy to reproduce in captivity, means we will need to make sure their population doesn't get out of hand. These penguins have a few different enrichment items, but most of them are just fish. To begin this build, I want to quickly decorate this area a bit more, as it doesn't look very exciting at the moment. This area will have a planter which is mainly there to stop people without a ticket from looking in and seeing the koalas. First off, I have to start by adding the breeze block walls to enclose all of the dirt. With that finished, I can begin by adding the dirt and filling in the entire planter with it. With the dirt complete, we can start by adding the plants, and obviously, we will be adding the buffalo grass, lots of it. To add some height and variety, some bluestem grass and bramble bushes, and then we will add the corkwood tree to mainly block the view of non-paying guests. Then finally the cork oak tree and the ghost gum tree, and then the planter is finished. If I'm gonna be honest, this is the best way I could have taken up that space. It really makes the area look more lush. It also does a great job stopping people from peeping through the fence and seeing the koalas. To begin the enclosure, we've got to start on the back of the rock wall like we did in the koala enclosure. Using the stalagmite pieces, I'm going to be doing the same thing I did with the koala enclosure, but due to the beach theming, I've recolored the rocks to a lighter yellow. Over at the edge of the rock wall, I'm going to be using some false rocks to help differentiate the side of the enclosure from the stalagmite background for different textures. After using lots of different false rocks, the back of the enclosure looks really nice. and you can't see any bits of the koala enclosure behind the rocks. Just because the rock wall at the back of the enclosure is done, doesn't mean we are anywhere near done adding rocks to the enclosure. The rocks I'm adding right now are locating where the barrier of the enclosure will be, as I want the water to separate the guests from the beach area at the back of the enclosure. This is how I plan for it to look like, and I'm really proud of how it looks. But we've got an issue. Penguins need at least 2 meter deep water to be able to deep dive, but this wooden beam shows that it is less than that, which means we've got to make it deeper. This isn't going to be too hard. All we've got to do is lower the terrain a bit and then smoothen some parts out. Now this wooden beam is under the water completely, which means the penguins can deep dive. I'm going to start by constructing the beach section now. Starting with the rocks, I want most of the shore being rocks with just a little bit of sand. I want a little rock island in this small area for penguins to go on. This is turning out really well, and it's starting to look more of like a rocky coast of Victoria or Tasmania. But with this beach area being dirt instead of sand, it looks weird, so let's change that. I will now add sand basically everywhere, as we want this to seem more like a beach. And now this is looking way better. In this rock pile, I want to make a small area where plants will be able to grow, as that can be pretty common in rock sections. I've finished adding the mulch, so I will now come through with smaller plants to fill in these areas. Adding these plants have made a huge difference by adding more color into these areas. And you can definitely tell from a distance as well. But now we've got to add the habitat barrier around the enclosure. I'm going to use the habitat barrier from the koala enclosure and use it here. I will bring this all the way until it reaches the shed. Off camera, I added some rocks between the sections of glass for information to be added later, but this habitat is really coming together well. Now we will add the plants. I've added 2 palm trees on each side of the beach, and now I'll add some small patches of buffalo grass to be in replacement of little weeds growing through the sand. After all the green buffalo grass is added, I'll add some parched buffalo grass for dried out weeds. Last thing on the beach, I'll add some small pebbles all around the place. And then I'll head underwater with some eelgrass to act as seaweed and some underwater temple plants. This enclosure is turning out really nice, and I'm happy with how it looks. The outdoor enclosure is 100% complete, which means there's only one thing left to do. The fairy penguins backstage. We've got to get this done fast, and we've got notice that the penguins are on their way. To begin with the backstage, I want to make an area underwater where the penguins can swim into their shelter. I will make an automatic door where keepers can open and close it whenever necessary. I've made the door, but now I've got to make the hinges for the door to latch onto to make sure it doesn't fall off. This is how the enclosure will officially look from a guest point of view, and I quite like it. Now time for the inside of the backstage. I'm adding a lot of plaster near where the penguins will enter the backstage from, as this will be the ramp entering and exiting the water. This ramp will help assist penguins getting out of the water, as well as getting into the water if they need. Now that the ramp is complete, I've got to add some last final details to the backstage, like some sand. I'm also adding some decals to make the place look more worn out. This is how the backstage looks, but I think the penguins are here. Our 6 blue fairy penguins have arrived, and at the moment seem to be very curious in their new enclosure. We are housing 3 males and 3 females, and they all seem to enjoy their new enclosure. But just in case, Chief Executive of the Gold Coast Wildlife Shelter, Morgan Sill, is here to make sure everything travels smoothly. We also thank Crane & Co Constructions again for this amazing habitat, and can't wait to partner with them for even bigger projects. The bankruptcy of Cabrino Zoo has really taken a toll on Spinifex Zoo's animal roster, but even with that limitation, we still are making sure that this zoo is the best we can make it. With our koalas eating their eucalyptus leaves, and our penguins swimming in their brand new home, this means we've got to start preparing for whatever's next to come. For now, we appreciate the support from everyone, and can't wait to see how this zoo continues to progress. And feel free to comment any name suggestions you have for the fairy penguin. With that said and done, I hope you enjoyed today's video, and if you did, please consider subscribing, as it really helps the channel grow. Anyways, I'll see you on the next video. Goodbye.